Hi, Zoom people. Thanks for doing this, Ghazal and Thingy Cafe. Thank you for hosting. And you all over here, thanks for the tech. And yeah, and to the other readers. It's great. So I thought I wasn't planning on doing this, but because Helen and William are here and they translated Vallejo's Trilce, I thought I would read just one poem from this book, which I happen to have with me, which is called Think Tank. And this book was written in dialogue with Trilce, with Clayton Elshelman's translation of Trilce. So some friends, we read that book for a year. We read one poem every other week and just spent a long time talking about them. And then inevitably, I think we were all writers, so inevitably we all wrote something out of that. So this poem, but the book is just talking with Trilce, I guess you could say. And yeah, I'll not say more. I'll just read the one because it has a line from Vallejo in it. Here and there things are made, but how? By a future mouth without teeth? These unrevealed days lie reading the forehead of an eerie young girl, lie beaming in the deaf rippled bay, lie flat like a party where everyone cried, had nothing to do, no will to invent, no wish to go outside. Like alkali from ash, leach the wet, heavy, pubescent trees of their ire. A man walks into his coat, his happy hands in his hair. Little I celebrate the coincidence of my birthday, injured by sands blowing into my face, while the Gap man, the great CEO of Sisora, tosses his son into the sea where bagged seals rot. Okay. I'm going to read from two new projects. The first is another kind of writing through or writing with the 12th century Jewish mystic and theologian Moses Maimonides, and his book, which is called A Guide of the Perplexed. So mine is A Guide for the Perplexed. Sometimes he's translated A Guide for the Perplexed. That book, as I understand it, which is probably not a lot, is trying to convince a religious reader that God is not a finite being or corporeal body, but is infinite, an infinite energy, and that only if you understand God to be an infinite energy is God real. So I'm not concerned with convincing anybody anything about God, but I'm interested in the idea of a guide and of our sort of longing for guidance and our sort of manufacturing of guides. And I'm also interested in the question of violence and the question of evil, which everybody who tries to talk about God ends up needing to talk about. So that's enough, I think. A Guide for the Perplexed. Begin again and also again begin. The color blue, it speaks. First the feet and hands, then the lips. First the lips, and then the feet and hands. The eyelids, the lips. The existence of an infinite magnitude is impossible. The existence of an underground heart, of a fire in the throat, of a crow on the step, of a silent thought. It was too cold for rain, too warm for snow. The river was gray and moving fast. The sky also, too cold for rain, warm for snow. Walking we walked, with my uncle and my aunt, toward the river, gray and moving fast. A man entered a building, whipped his head around to see who had said what I said. Once we sat face to face across a tiny round table teetering on the edge of a sidewalk. Your walking stick leaned against your knee. Though I had come to you for guidance, had called to you from my seat behind the wheel, had called to you from my kitchen counter, had called to you from inside a dream, now, finally, I had traveled to the city where I would meet you at this teetering table. But you had no guidance to give. Rather, you were, like I was, tired. It had been an effort for you to leave your apartment, to descend the stairs, to walk to the cafe, to face me in this way. I had taxed you. The guidance I craved would not be forthcoming. Where then would I find it? How we swam in each other. But your eyes that swam in me also looked away. They looked away, down to the hand that rested on the knob of the walking stick. I'd hoped you would take on the status of guide, but in looking away you refused. It was as if refusing was an invitation. My walking stick leaned against my knee, my breath heavy. The man behind the counter gazed at my throat. With a quiet voice, he complimented my stick. "Nice stick," he said. A vignette arose as if out of smoke. "She's not communicating. She's pretty closed off," the grandmother says. "The world is run on fear," her son answers. "There's a song about that," says his mother. "The existence of a thing that is infinite is impossible. If it is infinite, it is not a thing," says the father. Together they look at the body on the ground. Two scenes precede and follow this one. The first is of the children who eat each other. The second is of a young woman buried alive in a pit of corpses. The woman who's been buried alive in a pit of corpses waits for the shooting to stop. Many more bodies fall for many hours. When the quiet finally arrives, she waits a bit longer, just to be sure. Then she pushes the corpses off herself. They are heavy, but they are not infinite. Like snow, covering and blurring, like snow, quieting and numbing, terror mounts. Terror, and more upon that. I have discovered steel guitar strings attached to the inside of my body. I find them both under and on my skin. These strings cannot be played. They are broken, loose, coiling and uncoiling. I ask others if they too have found wires sticking out from their insides or hiding in their clothes. Yes, some have, but not everyone. During the 2 days in September of 1941, when Babi Yar was quickly filled with over 30,000 corpses, my mother was just about to turn 5 years old in Washington, D.C. with her mother and father, Jews whose parents had migrated from that same land 35 years prior to the filling of the pit. A dress with a bow in the back. The siblings, parents, cousins, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and friends they had left behind shot in the nape on the rim, or they died of starvation, or they were gassed in the camps. Doesn't matter how they died. It does. It was on me to take the visiting professors on an outing. The visiting professors and I went to the foothills for a hike. To the right of our precarious path, a deep ravine, into which I dropped my walking stick. They made him crawl around the town square naked with a ball balanced on his back. Then they shot him. One cousin traveled to Ukraine and visited the pit in which the family members fell after they'd been shot in the nape. Or they might have starved, or joined the partisans, or joined the Judenrat. As in watching a video of an indistinct sex act on a phone screen held in the hand of an actor performing on one's computer screen, we feel ourselves to be removed. At the party, the children carry homemade signs. They hold them up to the grown-ups, and then they run away. The signs say, "Laugh." 3 women sit in a row. They call out in anger intermittently. When not calling out in anger, they type furiously into their phones. When not calling out in anger or typing into their phones, they shake their heads in disbelief. When not calling out, typing, or shaking their heads in disbelief, they shut their lips tightly and gaze out the window. When not calling, typing, shaking, or shutting their lips tightly while gazing out the window, they laugh sardonically. When not calling, typing, shaking, shutting, gazing, or laughing sardonically, they sense in the center of their throats and in the space between their eyebrows the pressure mounting that signals a sob. When not calling, typing, shaking, shutting, gazing, laughing, or sensing a sob, they are sobbing. Their faces nonetheless rigid with rage. Their children, if they are lucky, in bedrooms asleep. And that is that. I wanted to try to write something that was just a book of poems, because everything I had written had been a project. And I thought, well, other people write just books of poems, so let me see if I can. And, you know, of course there are themes, but I'll just read 4. Friday day, Friday night. Days Garamond 10 in the eugenics stride of pissed off job lines and anti-home ec handouts. Sky so hard blue it's unbalanced, forcing the earth like a bitch in the park's pathways chained to her human's hand. Platinum plaited cruddy-eared dolls fall forward toward the torn edge of a box. We've got underwear in a stroller and tomato stalks stalled in the dirt. Come on. Rick's giving letterpressed vote signs away, and Blair's rad aiders are out with their alt-cop flyer for free. Nights ashy and hopeful and deep. We go there, our faces rushed with new blood. I don't know who tied these knots. We've been complaining about the same thing for as long as we've been complaining, which is long. The boy lowers himself to the floor and on his knees jumps. I wanted to write a poem to the future unborn whose air I've been using, to write a poem to my dead mother whose air I've also been using. At her stone on her birthday, we talked about landlords. The hills held new corpses. Winged ants swarmed a name. It was fall. I needed sunglasses. My son was worked up about the sky. After you, says a man with low boots to an old one in a coat. It was good to be born, at least at first, says a woman with a 4-footed stick. She makes her masked way, her silver earrings sway. I hiked a hard trail and sat on a ridge. No amount of sweat or view seemed to ask me to live, but with them I washed my face. And I just wanted to shout out for Andrea Brady, who's not here, and I know we all wish she were. If she's there, hi. I love you. I wish you were here. Anyway, she's just a fantastic and incredible poet whose work I revere, and I just wanted to say her name. Dear listener, I didn't know what I was doing or why I was doing it. Perhaps you guided me as if a path through deep grass, as if the color blue, episodic, blazing. But there were baggage, unclaimed, and other women watching me. They seemed hurt. I knew it, hurt them in some way. I was ill. I would have slept longer still, but that I was on the highway had a place for me to fill. So that when I came then to find you, I was late. Listener, no striving. In a sense, no choosing. I arrived. Tiny weeds in my fingers, dirt in the skin of my hands. A monarch appeared behind me, a girl in the spray of the hose. These things are real. I'm telling them to you. Though I've wanted to diminish them, to turn myself harder. I am light, she said. I am stretchy. I feel like nothing, and it feels so good. I feel like nothing, like I am nothing. I could play for 49 hours, for 49 hours and 59 minutes, and I would even play for 50 hours if you asked me to. If I had to, she said. Listener, you are forbidden, far, and unreal, until I make you up by telling you what she said.